What is war? Is it something to rejoice over? Or is it something to mourn over? Is it something to be forgotten? Or is it something to be remembered?
To few who fight our country's battles, from Montezuma to Tripoli, those Minutemen roll along, freed from perils on the sea. We give them wings, they guard our borders. Old glory waves in times of war and peace. They are always there, always ready, yet we thank them limitedly.
March 19th, 2003 marked a beautiful day in history, a plan to rid the land of Saddam Hussein's tyranny. President George W. Bush introduced Operation Iraqi Freedom. Weapons of mass destruction had been created, and the world didn't need them. The U.S., joined by the UK, launched a shock and awe bombing campaign. Hussein's forces were overwhelmed by American troops who succeeded while suffering pain. 8 years and 9 months, those soldiers stood on guard, warding off conflicts until those negotiations were hard. Still, they persisted to protect their motherland. We should thank them every day that they are willing to face our enemies and stand.
Pearl Harbor experienced pain mixed with fire. The Japanese schemed up a plan to make the U.S. lose all of their weapons they acquired. A day after the devastation, President Roosevelt declared war on Japan and their allies. The U.S. hopped into a raging world war against the Axis powers, who they grew to despise. The Allied powers battled the Axis powers on European soil. Cities and families were destroyed in the toil. Hitler and his friends sought world domination, but the U.S. strived to destroy their aspiration. They did what they had to protect civilization, yet over 400,000 were slain upon activation. Still, they never stopped until that star-spangled banner was placed on top of the rubble. They're always on the lookout, awaiting possible trouble. They sacrificed and they've boasted, but they've never forgotten it's for the people that they've stayed posted.
In 1914, an archduke was assassinated, causing Austria-Hungary and its allies, the Central Powers, to become frustrated. From this event, a world war was brought. The Central Powers and the Allied powers fought. Many lives were lost in the process of battling, including Americans, which was rather saddening. Over 100,000 fellow Americans perished during the violence, leaving their families alone in the quietness. The American military fought through the massive war to protect the general welfare. They stood their ground as their brothers were weakened in the snare, and only returned home to a depression looming in the air. They are the glue that keeps this nation in repair.
Brother versus brother, friend versus friend. While President Lincoln in charge had a nation to amend, the North and the South fought because of their differences. Only the North found Americans' union significant. The South wanted complete separation and the ability to form a new nation. Nevertheless, the North refused to allow disjunction, and in the end, they all remained United States citizens. The Northern soldiers battled their brothers in hopes America would stay together. Thanks to them, America has remained united to separate never.
America began on a very violent note. The Declaration of Independence was sent to the British, which Thomas Jefferson wrote. It informed the British of the dissolve of their political band, and in return those lobster backs decided to gather their command. The American rebels prepared for the fight. Gathering together, they rode through the night. "The British are coming, the British are coming! One if by land, two if by sea," said Paul Revere as his horse kept on running. The American troops rallied against their foes. They persisted during the battle so their families could have a land bestowed. Those rascals and ruffians began the battling for the hope of a free nation. Now it's our turn to ensure America's liberation.
The men who fought. The men who cried. The men who laughed. The men who died. These soldiers, these band of brothers, we owe it to them. Their blood has provided our freedom and our safety. Years have passed. Decades have passed. Centuries have passed. But our military has not. Our flag will wave in the wind to the soldiers, wherever they may be sent. Our freedom is marching, and we can't forget.
I won't forget.
I won't forget.
Remember.
This land was made